Don't be feeling blue, no, no. Shine your light all around, like I know you can do, baby. Yeah, I know you can do. Now some people call me. Welcome, my friends, to the Sage of Quay Radio Hour, your home for free and critical thinking, and I'm your host, Mike Williams. Tonight, my very special guest is Jason Boss. Jason is the owner of 153news.net, which is a censorship-free platform for truth and alternative research content providers. The conversation with Jason was wide-ranging as he discusses his tenure with Google, his starting 153 News, and how truthers need to be careful when researching and investigating certain events. And so without further ado, here's Jason. I'm interviewing Jason Boss. He is the proprietor of 153news.net. Jason has a very extensive IT background, so the discussion today we're going to major on his time at Google and some information that he knows about and some of the work that he's done that I'm thinking is going to be an eye-opener for the audience. And so I think it's important that we get to hear what it is that Google is doing, especially from somebody who worked for them and has some inside information. I should note that the NDA or the non-disclosure agreement that has expired, is that correct, Jason?
That is correct.
Okay.
Yep.
So we're out of that window, and Jason worked for, I should say, Google from 2006 to 2010. So it was 8 years ago. So the point, I guess, with this show is the information that Jason's going to share with us is dated 8 years. But if that is what Google was doing 8 years ago or so, you can just imagine what's going on right now. So Jason, welcome to the show. It's great to have you here. And I guess the best way to start would be just a little background on how you started and ended up doing 153news.net. So where do you want to start? How did it all begin for you?
Well, I've always been an entrepreneur. All my life, I've been an entrepreneur, and that's what I do is I build businesses, and it's kind of in the blood. And you know, I out of school, I already had a computer store, and I've had computer stores or been in the IT world nearly all my life. I've had every certification under the sun: Cisco, Novell, Microsoft. You know, you name it. You can roll it in as toilet paper. I've had so many of different certifications in there. And so I've always been a lifetime geek. That's what I like to do, and that's what I like to play on. And you know, it takes its course. And for the IT world, the top of the pinnacle is an ISP, an internet service provider, and that's where I've lived most of my adult life, delivering high-speed internet to people in rural America. And so I've had 3 different ISPs that I've built and that I've sold over the years. One was in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. I had a blast over there. And so I deliver high-speed internet to people, and I still do to this day. I have an ISP in Oregon and Washington, and it's a lot of fun. And you know, your hands are in the mix of people's privacy. People do stuff on the internet that is extremely private, and over the years, I fought every federal subpoena that's come along our way. People have always wanted IP addresses for things like that, and there's only one, a pedophile, that I actually let through, and everybody else I fought. I said, you know, what do you want from these people? What have they done? And we've always been a champion for privacy and for the end user, you know, because hackers just really have a tremendous advantage over end users. People running Windows just are really at a loss, unfortunately. So, you know, being and defending Windows and defending all this, being an ISP, one day I got the call from Google, and they wanted to interview me. And they were building one of their very first data centers in Oregon. And Google didn't, up until this point, never had their own data centers. They always co-located with people all over the world. And one of the first things, before I get too far into this whole thing with Google, is I have a lot of friends at Google, and they are very good people. Everything that goes down this path has absolutely nothing to do with them. Google is run at the very top by a couple of dudes who are in full control of the entire company. And so, as evil as you guys are going to see this company becoming very shortly, it's not the people that work there. And I still have a ton of friends there. And people should understand that Google is large. It's very large. Back in 2000, when I got hired, they had 800,000 computers. Now, this is the first time that any of this information has ever been made public, because people just didn't know how many they had. They had 800,000, and my job was to build a data center that put 200,000 on the ground in Oregon. And so that's what I did, is I built that team of people who went, and we we built an awesome infrastructure, and it was amazing. We got to see stuff that's still state of the art. I've seen processors and different technology that still has not hit the street even 10 years later. It's amazing. And so these guys, the big companies, the Googles and Apple and these guys, they have technology that we haven't seen. I still have not seen some of this stuff 10 years later. And so they're using stuff that, we're at the end of the game. And that's why we never get the good technology, because we're the little guys. And so inside of Google, I ran a team of about 100 guys that worked on these 200 computers. And how this began is you would go to, you had 200,000 computers at any given time. You could have, 10,000 computers that were broken. And so my job was to take the guys and go through these machines and be able to bring these machines back to life. And so back in my day, and I guess one of my claims to fame and where I advanced within Google is that the process was each individual person, a tech, to go walk to each of these 200,000 computers and diagnose it by hand. And I'm like, this is not scalable, because I knew that they were hitting 1 million computers and they were going to be going into the multi-millions. They wanted like 1.6 million computers. And this is prior to D-Wave stuff coming out. So that's going to change the game.
So Jason, the 200,000 is part of their infrastructure?
Oh, yeah, you bet. Absolutely. 200,000 physical machines within clusters in, a couple of different buildings. So, and getting into all the clustering, it's a big thing. Google is infinite in size, and they're infinite in money. The money that these guys bring in is millions of dollars hourly. Right? They're tremendously wealthy company, and they spend that on their people, and they're also their data centers. Their data centers are some of the best in the world. They're running the top highest end equipment ever, and Google is nothing to joke with. People don't understand that Google is 20,000 employees across the world, and everyone. I mean, it's a big company, and so that leads me to the shooting over in YouTube the other day. When the guy walked into Google and to YouTube and shot. You just don't walk into Google. Google has some of the absolute best security. They have absolutely the best cameras. You just don't walk into Google. You badge into Google. Everywhere you go, you badge. And so it was kind of interesting. They spun the whole story of that, and we'll let it ride at that. But Google is very big, and so I'll take us into the insides of Google a little bit. Like I just said, there's cameras. Everybody talks about Google's over the top luxuries. And I mean, it is. I mean, they have segways everywhere, massage chairs everywhere. You can get a massage every very little bit. You're fed all your meals. You have snack bars. It's the ultimate kind of I don't know. It's like an Alice in Wonderland kind of lifestyle. And I mean, it does breed very good software. It breeds very good infrastructure. It breeds good people, and a lot of people thrive on that kind of environment. But it's, people that walk from the streets and saw what corporate America was kind of like, they'd be blown away at how, it's like you have a massage. Anytime you want to schedule a massage, go get a massage. Go lay down, get a massage anytime. So free meals, free massages. That's basically the inside of Google. It's a luxury network of fun.
So huge perks for the employees then. So which is an incentive,
Absolutely.
Obviously, to bring in the best talent.
Yeah, absolutely. And to get into Google, it's no joke at all. It's extremely hard. I consider myself, and it's not to be pompous, it's just that I've been there. I've done everything. And so I was able to get in. They hired me at a higher level than they said they hired other people in how I had it. I was a data center tech 3 is what they hired me in at. And it was like 85, 90,000 a year plus, 30,000 bonus if you performed well. And by the time I left as an operations team manager, I was making 120 grand a year with a 25,000 bonus. So I was doing, 145 a year easy. And so, that's the kind of it all out. So, and I want everyone to understand that we're going into the guise of don't be evil. Don't be evil is the motto that Google absolutely put together right as they began their entire career. We were led to believe that this company is not going to be evil. And when you look at the tricks the devil plays, absolutely somebody might come in and say, we're not evil. And at the end of the day, you're going to see some crazy stuff here. So I'm just going down my notes so I can get everything in here for you guys. Let's see. So inside of all of this data center, let me get back to my quick little claim to fame is So we're trying to repair 200,000 computers. We were doing it by one person at a time. And I said, this isn't going to work. I said, and I went rogue. In corporate Google, you can't just go decide you're going to go do something. You go through the ranks and the layers. It's a lot like politics. I'd never been in corporate America before. It's like you have to go shake hands and love everyone, and everyone has to support you in corporate America. And I was, I always built businesses, so I wasn't, I just went and did it. So it was something new to me, playing as a team.
Yeah,
like
corporations are very process oriented, so you have to follow the process.
Yeah. Yeah. So I went rogue, and I took over a little tiny cluster of computers, and I developed this artificial intelligence program that I called Ronin. And what it did is every time a computer broke, they would just reboot this computer. It would boot up into this little tiny operating system, and it would diagnose all these computers, the same stuff every human had to do. So I went and proved this whole thing to them, and they loved it. And they're like, wow, yeah, this is the greatest thing. And to this day, there's teams of people that run Ronin because it eliminated the technicians actually going to these computers and having to diagnose them. They didn't have that prior to me. So, at the end of the day, I helped the beast system out, as crazy as that sounds. So that's Ronin. And as I developed Ronin, I kind of became, a celebrity. Everyone's like, oh, yeah, this guy had, he pushed this idea through, and wow, look at this. This is a game changer. So I had a lot of perks. I was able to get around. And during that process, they sent me to a leadership training camp. And it was in California. And it was this big, expensive camp kumbaya stuff about team. They sent all their up and coming managers to this stuff. And at this meeting, I sat around this group of this guy, and this dude was heartbroken. And, again, I was the young guy who was always, don't be evil. Google is the company for us. This is good. Everybody thought that. And so as we sit around this meeting, this guy, it was the ending time where we were all supposed to bond together. And, the 6 people we didn't know, we all, tell our dark secrets. So this guy tells me, he's in charge of this cluster. This really has him disturbed. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And he says, there's this project called Project Kansas. And I'm like, Project Kansas, isn't that the Wi-Fi project or something they have? He's like, no, it's another Project Kansas. I'm like, what is it? He says it's 22,000 computers at that time, 22,000 computers. And there was a function of this thing called Sawmill. And Sawmill goes over every piece of Google infrastructure there is. And for the record, let me tell you guys, some of the Google infrastructure, you have Google itself, the search, you have Gmail, Google Analytics, YouTube, G Drive, Sheets, Docs, Maps, Photos, Play Store. It goes on, endless, Chrome. Every bit of that information, every bit of that user information goes into Sawmill. Sawmill compiles everything about you. Even if you're a Yahoo user that has received an email from a Gmail user or has gone to an analytics site, every last bit of that information is taken through Sawmill and taken and put into Project Kansas.
What you're saying, Jason, is all their products are being surveilled.
Absolutely everything. And now you have Android phones. Apple's absolutely no different. They're just the other side of the coin, but I just know the inside from this. So you're Android, and Android's been caught before reporting Wi-Fi data, reporting all sorts of stuff. And that's just the stuff they get caught for. At the end of the day, they have a cluster, and it was 22,000 computers 10 years ago. It's probably, 80,000 computers right now. And you have the way he described this, it really unnerved me. It really took my securities of this company that I was rooting for, that I really thought was the next up and coming thing. And I said, this is like part of the beast system. There's something absolutely wrong with this. And so I left California, and this guy, how he described this thing is that it's a giant folder. It's a giant folder. Everybody has a personal profile. Everybody, everything, every search from the beginning of time to right where it is, everything. This thing knows people right now, 8-10 years ago, better than you will ever know yourself. It will know your porn tendencies. It will know your whatever tendencies. It will know if you searched for something bad. There's absolutely nothing. And it scared the living snot out of me. He was brokenhearted about it. And I carried that back. And I'm like, I think I went about 6 more months after that. And I'm like, you know what? I'm done. I said, I went and I built another ISP, and that's what I've been doing to this time. And I'm like, and I put on when I was leaving, why are you leaving? I said, Project Kansas. I said, what part of Don't Be Evil does Project Kansas fall under? I mean, how is surveilling and taking the trust of everybody under the Project Don't Be Evil? How is that good? How is that ever going to benefit us? Because we know that the NSA is all over this data anyway. So it was just long before the Alphabet gangs got busted, long before Snowden came out with any of this stuff. Google, under the guise of Don't Be Evil, was already our enemy. And it's sad.
So the person you spoke to, Jason, did he say what the information was being used for? Now they're collecting it. It's going into a big folder. So what was the game plan?
What was the game plan? What he said that his management told him was this was going to be used for extreme personalized advertising. Like this would know exactly what you want, when you want. And let me tell you something about Google. This is how awesome Google is, or how when we were in very first at Google, and the first presentation I ever saw was a lady and a whole group of people in a room on their computers, and there are cameras on top of the computers, watching everywhere that people look. And they've taken these results, and everything that you look at with Google is the reason that people look. It's the way people look. They've manipulated the entire system. You know why Bing doesn't look good? It's because they haven't done what Google does. Google knows where you look at all times. They know everything about you, and now they know everything about you. Everything.
Interesting. So let me ask this question. I've always wondered this. So they have like different search engines out there, Google being the largest. Like you mentioned Bing, and there's Yahoo, and there's others, right? So even if you use these other search engines, does Google have their hooks into that also?
Absolutely. Yeah, you can't go VPN. You can't. There's no such. I mean, here's the thing. People are always like, let's go VPN. You know, who's the VPN? At the end of the day, who controls this VPN? Because if you just buy some dude's VPN and it might be the best thing on the market at the time, you don't know if it's not the feds running the daggum thing. You know, you don't know. And you know, even DuckDuckGo and the people, they're still using Google to an extent. And Google has enough stuff in your Chrome browser. It reports everything you do. People have known this for a long time. It reports back and forth. If you're using Chrome, if you're using Firefox, it doesn't quite send it to Google, but I mean, they're all interconnected. And Sawmill, that's what the Sawmill is. It's a data collection unit, and that's it wants to show you everything.
What I've noticed is they always use this, companies like Google, this information. They always say, well, it's for better consumerism, is really what they're saying.
Well, yeah, well, sure. Absolutely.
And a lot of people would say, well, okay, so they're just going to try to sell me stuff. But I think that that's probably very naive. In fact, I'm going to say it is very naive to believe that the only reason this information is being used is so that it could be a better vehicle for consumerism and to sell you stuff, right?
No. And I mean, here's the thing is at the end of the day that they absolutely have everybody on the planet identified by now. That was the part of this whole game is identification. Who are you? What do you use? Where do you go? I mean, and you know, they have to identify us. At the end of the day, if you know, they get their way, they have to know who they are and who they're dealing with. And this is one way. We're identified. This was 10 years ago. I mean, you go to a little bar, you log into your Gmail or log into anything. Google Analytics runs the internet's analytical system. Like everybody uses Google Analytics, like 99% of the web. And they bought out a company years ago called Urchin, who everyone loved. And now Google Analytics controls the world. You can't go to a website without analytics reporting who you are, your IP, and you can't hide. I mean, you really just can't hide. This is not the age to hide anymore.
Yeah, that's the other thing that I've kind of just settled in with is the fact that there really is no hiding. I mean, you just got to do what you've got to do, and that's that. Because if you're going to try to play peekaboo with them,
yeah,
that's not going to work, right? Because they know where you're at. I mean, Jason, I was using my phone the other day, and I was trying to get the weather, and it said, well, why don't you try the GPS option, right? On a lark, I did it, and it says accurate to within 50 feet. I'm sitting in my backyard, accurate to 50 feet.
You bet. Yeah, no, they know everywhere you go. You walk around with your cell phone. So here's the gig is if you have your Wi-Fi on, you're being reported back on where you're at. If you don't turn your Wi-Fi off when you leave your house, everywhere you go, it picks up everybody's Wi-Fi along the way. Like they know the world. They know where everybody's internet is. They know where everybody's, and that's the funny thing is when we started 153news.net, everyone's like, oh, this is a honeypot. This is a honeypot to get all the truthers here and to set them up and to do all this stuff. And I'm like, you guys are very naive. You guys are very, I mean, you think you can hide behind YouTube with your faceless memes and your troll accounts and think that you're anonymous, and then you want and that's funny because people went over to BitChute and they my partner he like logged in and he showed all these things like 40 or 50 different things, Amazon, all these things that were hitting you the second you went to BitChute, and then he goes to 153news.net and there's nothing. It's a blank screen. I mean, we don't report. We don't care. We you sign up with an email address. If you have the right content, we'll allow you there. But it's crazy. People don't get that they're exposed. This it's not like, you're walking around with a cell phone. That is a bug. That is, and you have 15, 20 apps that monitor you at all times, all the time.
Yeah, I've had this discussion with folks too. Others that are on YouTube in the truth community, alternative research community, they use aliases for names and stuff like that. And I understand why they would do that. But again, it's going back to your point. You can use an alias if you want, but the only person that you're convincing that, that you're kind of hidden is you.
Yeah,
The
absolutely.
people you're trying to hide from, they know who you are.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, this is why people don't, you don't want dirt. I mean, if you're doing bad stuff and trying to expose stuff, you're just going to get in trouble. You got to be a clean guy. You got to have a clean record. People with 153 News, I think I've had every troll under the sun try to expose me. I even doxed myself, and I'm like, look, guys, this is what it is. But they're convinced I work for the CIA, or they're convinced it's just, it never ends. It's like a insane asylum almost.
Well, even you're working for Google, they have to have, and I know they have, very extensive background checks.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. No, you don't get into it. So one quick step back to the interview process. It takes 6 different interviews at 3-hour increments to ever get into Google. You have to be 100% accepted by 6 hardcore techs and people that watch you. It's no joke to get in, and then they background checked you extensively. I mean, and you're sitting there working on some of the most sensitive data in the world. You have people put their lives into these products, and they have no idea. They're just sticking their lives in the products out of convenience. A lot of it's out of laziness, and a lot of people would still choose to the security, convenience over security, and they do.
Yeah, a lot of my listeners know I was in the corporate world for a long time, and you also made another point, and I want to reiterate this point, that the people that work for these companies, the rank and file, going to work every day, making a salary, paying the bills, they're good people. And they are very much unaware of the larger picture. It's very compartmentalized, number one. That's what you have to understand about everything that goes on with the stuff that we investigate and research in the corporate world. It's very compartmentalized. It's need to know. So you're working on a piece of it, and that's it. That's the piece that you work on. How that connects to the next piece, the guy next door or the guy down the hall and so on, you may not figure that out.
Mm-hmm.
And even if you do figure it out, there is so much more compartmentalization that takes place above you, laterally.
Absolutely. Yep.
That to try to piece the whole thing together. And the other issue, folks, quite honestly, is the fact that, and Jason and I talked about this before the show, most people, they're on the treadmill, they're on the hamster wheel. So they're not even thinking in terms of something nefarious or something evil taking place. They're just not, their head is just not there. So it's not in their awareness to go look for something evil. Like the guy you met, you spoke to, he, it dawned on him, he realized what was going on. You being astute knew what was going on. But I have to figure that's the minority of people at Google. I would think that most people think they're doing good things.
Absolutely. And for the most part, 99% of the people are doing good things. And that's the same with the rest of the world, right? 99% of us are just going to the next day. Somehow we got stuck in this matrix wheel of the 1% that, they really don't care about us. And it's the 1% at the top that make all the rules. And it's like, you can't blame YouTube for this stuff. It's not the people at YouTube that do this. They actively hire 10,000 moderators. That's not the employee's fault. It's like some guy out there looking for a job. Now, his job is to sit and troll accounts or to monitor back, and that's where they have to decide, is this where I want to be? Is this honorable enough for the paycheck? And most of the time, they make really good money. I don't think anybody at Google makes chump change. They really don't. It's a very giving company for money.
Well, and the other thing is most people are convinced that what they're doing is the right thing.
Sure.
Because they're in the matrix and they're seeing certain channels or whatever, and they're like, oh, we can't have this. This is crazy stuff. That's why you and I do what we do, to try to wake people up and get them on board and to understand what's going on. But it's, it's a slow go.
Most people, here's the deal is, you have the red pill or blue pill, and most people are pretty content where they're at. They're really content where they're at. They, it's a lot of worry. It's like ever since I woke up, I haven't had a day of like, just like, wow, the world's good. I look out, look at the sky, and it's all clouded up. And I'm like, wow, what are my kids going to see? Where's this going? But a lot of people, they don't want to wake up. Football's cool. Christmas is cool. Let's all have a heyday. That's it. Let's just stay in the matrix. And so it's a choice, I believe.
Yeah, it is a choice. And like I said, it's a choice that stems from the fact that they just don't know. They don't have the the awareness. So they're thinking this is as good as it gets, right?
Right.
I got to go to work. I got to get a paycheck. I got to support the family and so on. Now, Jason, this all led to 153news.net. So I guess at some point you said, okay, enough of this. I'm going to create my own platform. How did that happen?
Well, I was a happy YouTuber. I had 21,000 subs, and I did a news, basically I call it end time headline news. It basically just shows a ramping up of the mad society that we're in right now, and the crazy stuff, the stuff a little outside of the box. And I did that. I had 21,000 subs, and the Vegas situation came around, and I've been watching news for so long. I'm like, I look at that and I go, that's not happening. Something's wrong here. And boom, YouTube took me out. And I'm like, geez, that was really quick. And so I went from there, and I found some open source software, and we popped it together and built it up. And it's 153news.net. And it's not a platform for everybody. It's a platform for all the people who have been banned across YouTube, who've been banned across Facebook. We're after the high profile stuff. We're after the stuff that could potentially lead to convictions, the stuff that can lead to people, these traitors being dealt with. And so it's basically really raw stuff. It's stuff you're not going to find anywhere else anymore. There's bits and pieces on BitChute and various things, but we have 1,500 people that have been kicked off of YouTube, the big guys, the guys people know, Russian Vids, Anaconda Malt Liquors, those kind of guys, and we're protecting them, and we've been violently attacked. It's been the most crazy thing I think I ever thought. I never thought 153 News would become what it is, and has gone to the point where we even had to hire an attorney to deal with Lenny Posner and that whole situation. So it's crazy.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. I was going to ask you how you are able to, well, first of all, are you convinced that you're out of the reach of Google surveilling 153news.net?
Absolutely not. No. I think we're under an extreme amount of surveillance. I see bot queries all the time for stuff that it looks like they're after, that it's just weird random queries of things, different towns, different things, and it's bots. And so I'm like, okay, so people are looking for these specific things. And here's some stuff that's really cool with 153news.net. With YouTube, you have absolutely no control, right? You get a strike, you get some dude's name, and you're supposed to fill out a one-liner, and you're supposed to be saved. Your video is supposed to be saved, and they always deny. They don't care about your video or any of that stuff. The real world doesn't exist like that. And I did not realize that YouTube essentially was just kicking us in the rear end, because what you get under a DMCA is you get a full letter, you get the person's name, him swearing under perjury, you get a whole bunch of stuff, and you can respond to that with, I have a legal form that I sent to my attorney to begin with, and we fought off 20 of these things, and they've gone, here's the gig, is between Lenny Posner and the Honor Network. There's 40 some people that have just viciously, been trolling and attacking, and it's been a lot of fun fighting these guys off. It's like it's like a childhood, high school thing or something. But these guys have been going at it, and they go after my Amazon account all the time. They go after all the places I'm hosting. The cool thing is, I bounce around, and so none of the places I'm at is where I'm actually at. And so they can take down pretty much any of my hosting at any point. I can have it up in about 30 seconds because I've been waiting for this. I didn't figure I'd make it as long as I've made it without them actually taking out Amazon or taking out somebody else. So I bounce all over the place. They'll never, ever be able to technically find out where I'm at. And when they do, because I expect at some point Amazon is going to side with them, because people see these videos and they're going, this is the most cruel stuff I've ever seen. You guys, all these victims, all these people crying, and you guys are heartless people. I've heard it over. And I'm like, look, I said, we're just showing you facts. That's it. We're just showing you stuff. We're not, you guys will have to take your own answers. You'll have to look into this stuff. But, that's where we're at. We have all of this stuff. We successfully fought off 20 of them. The Honor tried to take us out twice. We got their names. It's crazy. It's crazy because they get fully exposed when you're a private company. Like, they have to come at you directly instead of having YouTube that protects them. So what I figured out from that is you have absolutely no chance under YouTube to fight these guys off. And it's no wonder videos get taken down, because, you get 4 or 5 guys sitting there flagging videos and you're done. And so that's different. They've never had to fight this. And so we're 22-0 against Lenny and Honor at the moment. So
let me ask this, Jason, how do you say they can't nail you down? So what do you mean by that exactly? How do you maneuver around it?
Yeah, actually, this is great. This is great information for anybody. And then I'll explain it, because everyone's like, how do you do this? So you know what? You go and find cheap little $5 VPS boxes. Go find some guy that just has a cheap little $5 VPS box, and it runs Linux, and then you bounce it from that box to where you're really at. So I bounce all over the place. I have stuff in New York and California. I'm working on some Russian stuff, but they're never going to find out exactly the box. They could take like my DigitalOcean accounts or Amazon. They could take it all out, no problem. I'll just spring up another one because I don't have the real server publicly shown. We have several huge dedicated servers, but you can't. And so when people hack them or DOS attack them, because people DOS these things all day long, you're only DOSing Amazon, you're DOSing DigitalOcean, DOSing these people that deal with little script kiddies like this all day long. And so you never touch the site. And I suggest everybody does this. You can do it with a $5 VPS box at any place across the United States and hide your box. It's $5 a month. There you go.
Okay, so when they try to attack, they're attacking someplace else is what's happening.
Yeah, they're attacking a little tiny Linux box that has been stripped down that you're not gonna make it through. There's nothing to make it through to. It's a router essentially. You just made a router.
Okay, it's very interesting. All right, so that's how you've been able so far to be able to dodge the bullet, right?
To be able to stay in the United States and dodge the bullet, because we could do hosting in some scantless remote region of the world and it just would be slow, but so far we've been able to stay in the United States this way.
Okay, and now how about you yourself? Are you concerned about lawsuits? Somebody laying a lawsuit on you and saying, hey, you know what, you're actually fostering this stuff, you're putting it out there, it's your platform.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we 153 News is an LLC that I registered in New York where my attorney lives. And so we are set up to field this kind of stuff. We're set up a bit to defend it. It's really funny because we have some of the most scantless stuff about Lenny Posner and Sandy Hook and all this jive. But, I've seen him try suing everybody. I was just waiting for his attorney to get a hold of me because, they haven't been able to touch us. And, it's definitely Lenny signing, 20 of these things and lying through his teeth. But, so far, so good. But yeah, we're set up to get attacked.
Okay. So because you're a limited liability company, there's no personal liability. The liability falls on to the company itself.
Yep.
Okay.
If we get a tremendous something we can't do, I'll bankrupt the company and put the server over in Russia. I mean, that's where it'll go.
Now, do you ever get concerned, Jason, with some of the content? Let me ask the question this way. How well do you know the people that are trying to come on board? I mean, do you do a background check on them to make sure that they're not setting you up or setting 153news.net up?
That's the happy medium. It's like we know there's paid people out there. We know there's Tavistock out there. We know there's just a tremendous amount of people on payroll that are meant to infiltrate. And we've had Sandy Hook guys. We've had a whole different groupings of people, and we don't allow signups that you can't come and sign up. You have to send an email. We personally talk to you and reply back. And, it's a little slower than average, but I mean, we're humans. I mean, we tried open signups for just a little bit and we got the trolls and the Sandy Hook guys. And, it's like little tiny groups of 2 and 3 sound like monsters. And it's really just like a couple loud guys that they're ineffective, but they're loud in their packs. So we shut all that down and we actively hunt those people down and get rid of them. There's a huge thing because we're censorship free, but we've had to boot off a whole bunch of troublemakers. And so they're like, you're not censorship free, you censor everything. I'm like, no, I only censor the troublemakers. Humans are allowed, demons are not. We don't like demons. And that's what they do. They're just there to make trouble or disinfo. And so we're always worried about that. People coming in there. And, the thing we stand on and my attorney stands on is the First Amendment. We're trying to, I don't like a lot of the videos. Like a lot of the videos I don't agree with. A lot of the stuff I do not agree with. I do not. And, I control to a degree. Like people can't just come on. We can't just have random people come on and start uploading disinformation stuff. It doesn't work. And the eagle-eyed guys that are on the site, they'll blow a cap in you right out of the gate with some disinfo stuff. You can't come put Alex Jones stuff on there, right? It doesn't work. And the degree and spin that kind of stuff, it doesn't work. And so we are very limited. Anybody can have a subscriber account, and if you're good and don't troll, so be it. Please come get an account, join the team, join the family. And then if you're somebody like Russian vids or like people, the bigger people on there, they get a hold of me, or like if they can show me some of the content they made that looks like something that I would like to present to this people. But I mean, we're 153news.net, and I mean that is actually a biblical thing. That is a reference to a whole bunch of apostles that are out frivolously fishing for fish And our Messiah comes to the bank and says, toss it to the other side, and they catch 153 fish. And he goes, the moral of this story is, don't go out catching fish, go fish for men. And, that's where we're at. And so I don't want to have any disinformation at all. If I have to burn for the truth, it might just happen. I mean, I might just end up in the mental bin as well. I don't know.
So how do you identify, Jason? You mentioned the troublemakers, because I can imagine this is, this is going to be an ongoing thing that you have to always focus on, because there's always going to be people, for whatever reason, whether they work for, for the government, for one of the alphabet agencies, whatever it may be, that are trying to slip into the door and to cause a problem. So how do you go about that?
You just watch it. We have a lot of good people on there, and it's when you have a human base like YouTube, you don't know if it's humans or bots or what the heck it is that's making comments or thumbs up or thumbs down. This where you actually control it, and you have humans that you know of. People start getting weird. Like people throw somebody under the bus or like he's a shill and blah blah. It's like, here's the rule on 153news.net. If you absolutely have a problem with a content maker, you need to deliver it to us and let us evaluate what the heck you're saying. I mean, you can't just sit there in the forum and go, this guy's a shill. Yeah. He got interviewed on Fox one day. He's a shill. And I'm like, why? Do you have proof? I'm like, produce your evidence. If you can produce the evidence and we have a shill aboard, let's get him off. I don't want shills aboard. I don't want disinfo. There's too much of it. We've been lied to for so long that I don't like being lied to. And so, it's a slow process. People trickle in here and there, and you can see them. They kind of go like wolves in a pack, and then they start here and there, little tiny things, and they get more vocal. And pretty soon you can group them. It's not too hard to find them. I mean, real humans are good people. They're people we love, and people have questions. You can ask questions. You just can't go crazy and do like you do on YouTube. That's for YouTube.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned people complaining about the fact that you are censoring, even though you're saying that you're protecting First Amendment rights. And a lot of people, they don't really understand, what the word censoring means. Censoring doesn't mean that you can just say whatever you want to say. I mean, you can if you want. The thing is, people don't have to listen to you. That's the piece of it, right?
Right.
So, but when you run a platform, you have to have certain guidelines. You have to have certain practices. Otherwise, what's going to happen is it's just going to be total chaos. And
absolutely.
That's not going to work.
Well, and that's what we saw out of the gate is we had open signups and we had little groups of guys. They would band together and they would attack people. It really is. They hunt in teams. They come from YouTube in teams. They're like a little 2 or 3 buddies, or they're paid as groups. I don't know what the deal is, but they get in there and you gotta fish them out. And they do try to tend. They know now. I'm getting really good at hunting trolls, and they hate me. Man, I have hate groups on YouTube and everywhere. BitChute, they hate me. It's amazing. But if I didn't get rid of all these guys, and there's 20 guys that are really making a ruckus, if I hadn't got rid of them, then I'd be dealing with them on 153 News and all that evil negative energy, being into this. We're here to discuss things. You put a video up, we're not here to bash things, we're here to discuss it. What do you see? This is what we see. Should we be seeing this? And that's it. We're not bashing stuff. So those guys can stay on YouTube, man. They have a great home there, and that's breeds those places, people like that.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I don't do on my show. We don't go about bashing. What we try to do, and I think we do a good job of it, is to present facts, evidence, research, insights. And then it is up to the audience to decide, taking in those variables, where do they stand with it? And I've always said, I don't expect everybody to agree with my guests, to agree with me. It's a forum of ideas, right? Just sharing ideas and insights. And for some people, it's going to resonate, and for other people, it's not. But this whole thing where others are trying to club each other to death, I don't know. I never understood that because Jason, to be honest with you, and I say this a lot on my shows, one of the biggest problems we have is we lack civil discourse.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I don't think our parents paddled us enough, because we're just a bad breed of people. And it's unfortunate, it's I've inherited the people that will be, segueing into a little bit. I've inherited all their trolls, and these guys were loud. They're very, angry kind of people. So their enemies are they make my old trolls on YouTube look like cupcakes. So, I got a whole new breed of trolls. And I mean, these guys are ruthless. Absolutely ruthless.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned before, how many do you have on board with 153news.net?
1,500. We had about 1,500 providers that have been approved that do it, and we have about 3,500 just regular subs that people just they sub and find their people that they've been missing off YouTube and go find them.
Okay, so here's my next question: Is this like your primary job, or do you have a day job too?
Well, so here's the gig, man. In 2015, during Jade Helm 15, I'd seen enough. I'm like, you know what? I took my 2 cars and I drove south of the border. I'm down in South America, and so I'm coming to you live from there. So this is kind of my day job, and then I do a little bit of farming, and it takes so much time. I had absolutely no idea that 153news.net would take this much time and this much babysitting, and it's a lot, and it's growing, and the more it grows, the more things that you encounter that you just didn't expect, unfortunately.
Do you get any kind of funding from donations, contributions, subscriptions, anything like that?
Yeah, no. So my partner on this, from Death to Life, he used to have huge channels all over YouTube. Now we're all scattered around there. But he's in California. He and I have been putting the money into the servers. I own ISPs. I own infrastructure here and there, and so we're able to fund it like this. We set up a Patreon account. All of a sudden we became shills. We have $230 in Patreon accounts, right? And so we fund everything. It's thousands a month that Henry and I throw into this, but we have planned for this. It's what we want. And the guys, there's a handful, like 20 people that are Patreons, and God bless you guys. You know what? They see through the smoke, and you're not a shill. It's like you want to go a further direction. And so the Patreon guys at $230 a month or whatever, we're just about to develop an Android app, and so it's 100% because of those guys. And my hat's off to everybody, and thanks to everybody who does that. But no, I mean, we're not out looking for donations. People have donated. There's not a ton of patriots that are willing to throw in there. So it is what it is. We'll continue on with whatever we get, and if we don't get anything, so be it.
Good for you. The reason why I bring it up, Jason, is because there is this thought process out there that says if you're in the truth community or the alternative research community and you have a Patreon page or donations or contributions, that there's something wrong. You are a shill, right. You're some kind of agent, whatever it may be. And my response to that is I have a Patreon page. I mean, I don't have a lot of Patreons, but I have a Patreon page, and every once in a while folks will drop a donation on me, which is greatly appreciated. But folks, you have to understand that the people that are giving you the lies get paid millions of dollars a year. They pick up gigantic paychecks, And so this thought process where if somebody is in the truth community that you have to be a pauper and, and poor, otherwise you're not telling the truth. I mean, I never really understood that argument. And, and of course there is a fine line, where people really start to prosper from it, like the controlled opposition. And I believe InfoWars is controlled opposition as an example,
Absolutely.
Right? Lots and lots and lots of money there.
You bet.
So you have to use some discernment. But most of us that are out there trying to do this work, I mean, there's no money in this.
Absolutely not. No, and especially where you have to hire an attorney to respond to stupid DMCA attacks. But now I got the template. So anybody who wants to respond to a DMCA attack the right way, come see me. I'll send you the template. Put your name in there. Put all the stuff, and you can fight it too if you get it privately like this. But no, there is absolutely no money there. And it's like it's not a thankless job because it's like if one person wakes up, if one person comes to the truth, then I mean that's got that one soul, that one person has got to be worth everything that we're doing. But it is a thankless job. Yeah, you're damned if you do and damned if you don't. It's like if you have a Patreon or a PayPal, and PayPal just shut my account down because they said I denied the Holocaust, which I did not deny the Holocaust. But anyway, so they shut that down. We used to have PayPal accounts, but now that I'm a Holocaust denier, I mean, I said, hey, can somebody look into this stuff? I mean, I don't know either way. I wasn't back in that day, so I don't know. But anyway, it's hard, man. It is hard. And you know as well as I mean, you said it, there is no money in this. This is for the people. I mean, I believe we're in. I mean, not I don't want to sound like a religious freak or anything. I believe that we are in a end of days kind of scenario. We're in a time where we're crescendoing, and I don't think. I mean. You have crazy stuff. We have CRISPR-9. We have all sorts of weird stuff that's just happening right now. And I mean, if it continues like more than 20 years and we have our DNA completely, CRISPRized, there's not going to be anything left. So, I mean, I truly believe that our skies are completely covered for a reason. I believe that time is ticking for us. And, if we just finish this race right here, the best of our abilities, I believe that people will wake up if they're meant to wake up.
Yeah, I was talking to a good friend of mine the other day, and I said, we are at the crossroads. Where I believe we're at a point where something is going to happen. Now, the question, let me go back to PayPal for a second. So let's talk
Yeah.
about this a little bit. So even let's say you say or I say that the official or the mainstream story with regard to what happened in World War II, we question it
Yeah.
or aspects of it.
Not good. Don't do
Well,
it.
right. So, and look, I've questioned it. I've done shows on it. I've had Deanna Spingola on, and so I've been pretty. I don't want to say vocal, but I haven't hidden from the fact that there's more to it than what we've been told. Just like with everything,
Right, yeah,
it's no
absolutely.
different.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So for PayPal to turn around and say, well, you know what, Jason, we're going to shut your account down because you don't agree with that school of thinking or
Yeah.
right that line of thought. It's absolutely unbelievable. I mean, it's the thought police.
I've had this PayPal account since 2002. I've run hundreds of thousands of dollars to this PayPal account. Absolutely gave them their and it's funny, I don't know if somebody reported me or if they're out there, because they linked my Twitter account, my YouTube account, and my 153 account on this email that they told me to get bent on. And they're like, don't come back. Don't go under another name. All your credit cards, all your stuff that's on file are frozen. Don't even try to get them off into another account. So I'm like, okay, I see how this goes. But at the end of the day, the thing we have to realize, who are the top people? It's the same with Google. If there's a religion of the people at the top, what is it? And that's the question that people really need to come to grips with. Who are the controllers?
Right. Well, it's Voltaire, I think it was, who said, if you want to know who controls the world, I'm paraphrasing here, it's those that you can't speak about, right?
Exactly.
So, right. So we'll
there we go.
Leave it at that. We'll just leave it at that. So our PayPal accounts stay intact.
Yeah. Don't say that.
But, I guess for the audience, Jason and I having this conversation, but you can see how this is all tied in. You've got PayPal saying you can't think this way or speak this way. You've got Google doing their thing. All of these corporations, this is a web.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
This is a web of corporatism. These multinational corporations, the financial institutions, your education system, it's all the military, your government. This stuff is all weaved in. It's all interconnected, and don't think for one second that it's not, because it's amazing how they're able to aggregate the information that they need to aggregate in order to make an accusation or an allegation against you, like in your case with regard to PayPal. But that's just a small example, Jason, like really what you were talking about earlier with the Kansas folder, right? This is what can be done. In other words, they have a portfolio on you, me, and everybody else. And if for some reason they decide on any given day when they wake up that they're going to give you a hard time, or they're going to shut something down in your life, this is the environment. This is the state of where things are right now. And people really need to get their heads wrapped around that, I think. I mean, and there's still a lot of people, they don't pay any attention to the surveillance state, or they just think it doesn't apply to them.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't apply until it affects your life. And if it doesn't affect your life, that's why most people are complicit with this. It's just, unless, you'll see somebody getting mugged, but I mean, it's not you, it's not somebody you know. So, you let the mugging continue and walk away, and that's a state of where we're at. I mean, they bred this into our societies. They've dumbed us down to the point of it's like we're sleeping giants. And, I don't know how to wake people up. I don't, anymore. It's like, all you have to do is just, insert little questions like, what do you think, what do you think about this? Or, like little things like that. You can't just go out and say, 9/11 was an inside job. Still people are like, oh, that's sketchy. You can't come at it like that. It's taken 40 years to make us as sleepy as we are. You can't wake somebody up like that. It's like you almost have to have an unindoctrination cycle. Okay, let's start real slow. The moon landing, it looks like tinfoil. It looks like, what do you think of this? I'm like, oh yeah, that doesn't look real. And, take it to the next step. You can't just go plunge them into the water because they'll stay asleep. It's too much. It's a shock.
That's why I was having a conversation with somebody else. Who was I having it with? Oh man, I forgot who I was having this conversation with. But that's why we have to have a plethora or a wide assortment of areas of conspiracy research, because one area in particular, let's just pick on 9/11, that's not going to resonate with some people or a lot of people, right? So, but maybe geoengineering will, maybe vaccines will, right? Fluoride and so on. You have to have an array of material out there because that's the only way you're going to wake people up.
Yeah, and it might just be one of those little niches that actually wakes somebody up into like, oh, okay, if there's something nefarious going on here, maybe there's something else, and then, it's a slow process. But I mean, that's, one encouraging thing I talked to down here in South America is there was a girl and she spoke good English and I was talking to her and she's like, all my friends know the moon landing wasn't real. I'm like, are you serious? You know this? And she was, like 20 years old. And she's like, yeah, nobody thinks like that. And I'm like, for the first time in a long time, I was like super encouraged that, whoa, maybe these people, maybe we have the ability to think again. Maybe we can get through and maybe the next generation will save us where we failed to save ourselves.
Yeah, it's interesting. Some conspiracies, like even the JFK conspiracy, if you talk about it today, most people will say that something went on other than just Lee Harvey Oswald, right?
Sure. Right.
But when you think about it, that's 50 plus years ago. So it took 5 decades for people to finally come around to the point where they're questioning it. I don't even want to say a majority of people, but enough people where it becomes, it becomes promising that people are maybe perhaps waking up. Now, one of the things that I know we wanted to just touch on a little bit, it goes to these false flags and these shootings, is the shooting that took place last November of 2017 at the Texas Baptist Church. There were 2 truthers there, Sidethorn and Conspiracy Granny. And Sidethorn is Robert Ussery and Conspiracy Granny is Jody Mann. Do I have
Absolutely
that correct?
Right. Yeah, that is correct.
So they were arrested, or Robert was arrested, I guess back in, was it May of this year?
Yeah, I think it was March or May, one of the two.
Okay,
but yeah,
earlier this
first
year.
time.
Say earlier this year. And he had a presence on your 153news.net.
Yes, that is correct.
Yeah, so just curious, Jason, if you have any updates on how that's going, because I would follow these things, and in fact, there was the video that where he did Robert did the interview with Vice that went up on my blog. But I have to be honest, I mean, I was aware of it, but I wasn't digging into it because there's just so many of these things, and after a while, what happens is you get to the point where you say, okay, well, I know what this is. Right. And you've talked it to death. I know on my show, I've talked it to death with having Oli on and others to talk about these events, capstone events, funded by FEMA and the Department of Homeland Security. And then it's time to kind of move on because you've done as much as you can. I call it a point of diminishing returns. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
You start to lose the impact on it because people who know, everybody else is so glazed over. That's it. It's done. But Robert's got himself in a very sticky situation. So what's happened since? Well, why don't you give us a little background as to what happened? People don't know.
Yes. So, I'd like to kind of, I guess, introduce Robert and Jody. And, most people know them as their persona of the guy that is going to pee on, the pastor, the victim of this church. And, folks that I guess I didn't understand Sidethorn. I didn't know Sidethorn. I actually have access to his email. He put me in charge of his email that he's in. And so I've been having I've seen the kind of stuff that comes through Sidethorn's email. And I kind of get an understanding of why he says the things that he says. I don't condone any of it. I don't talk to people like that. I don't think people should talk to people like that. This guy was in the middle of battle and, the stuff he says, it's like you can't let your kids listen to it. You can't let your mom listen to it, but it's the heat of battle and people say some crazy things. And he's like ex-military. I mean, he's hanging out with the boys club for a long time. So this stuff is probably, what he says. But, he was in Sutherland Springs and he believes the events in Sutherland Springs didn't happen. And he didn't believe that any people died. And so he's been chasing that fairly aggressively to the point of where he will take a bullhorn. And this man has had $100,000 in silver for about 3 years now that he's been trying to give away to anybody who can produce a death certificate for about the last 40 events. And so this guy, I've seen it. I mean, I've seen him. I've known him for about 8 months now, 9 months possibly, and he's been trying to give this money away, and nobody takes it. And that's a really crazy question. Those are the things you guys will probably want to ask yourselves: is how can somebody in America, even if their kid died, I would take the guy's money and shut him up. I would be done, give him the death certificate, take the money, and, then put him on Front Street after that. Nobody has. And so he had $100,000 and he's screaming it out on a bullhorn. Does anybody die? Does anybody die here? Well, Vice, which is pretty much a CIA controlled operation, I believe, it's at least in the matrix of web, like we're talking about. But, they had a huge setup. He decided he was going to run an interview at this place he'd already been told to get off of or get away from the cops and from, Texas Rangers, that kind of things. He decided it was a good idea to have that interview there. And, if you're sitting there fighting this war, you're trying to expose these people, and he's kind of where he wants to be at the moment. And so during this Vice interview, Pomeroy, who he had never seen before, steps out of a car, and he looks, and it was it's the most awkward thing you could ever see. Is that was the time they had brought Pomeroy out. They had to have him there to basically say, "Get off my land."
Well, Pomeroy is the pastor.
Yes, Pomeroy's the pastor, and up until this point, they'd never seen him face to face like this.
Okay.
And he just hopped out of the car during that Vice interview, and Vice just happens to be there catching that, a shot of the century. And, how could you ever time something like that? And they had 5 Texas Constables, I guess they are, the guys that wouldn't be in Sutherland Springs that were around the corner. They said they heard sirens in 30 seconds, right? And basically that was it. And so they arrested him at that time for trespassing. He had marijuana, and he also had I don't know, the unpatriotic one, whatever it is, attacking somebody of that sort. So anyway, he went in, and 2 of the 3 were missing,
right?
Trespassing, and then there was another one. It was I can't remember. It was a bad one. It was making whatever comments or something like that. So anyway, he goes in and gets arrested. They take all of his video footage, and they start going through his GoPro video footage. And in the GoPro footage, he's talking about his guns and putting it under the seat and various things like this. And so then they take this, and they're on the indictment. It was the Department of Homeland Security. There was big, massive government agencies that were all in together looking over this stuff. And then they came, and he had been getting enough death threats. Now, Robert gets death threats. I've seen his death threats over and over and over and over. There are vicious people. I mean, it's the same side of the circle. The people that believe this didn't happen, they're very passionate. Then you have the people who are you're a monster. And they're this did happen. And so, you have very passionate people on this. But anyway, he's been getting these death threats. They called him and said, "Hey, can you come talk to us about these death threats?" They lured him out. They raided his house, arrested him, got all his guns. And now he's been locked up for about 35 days. They've denied him bail. They've denied his girlfriend bail. He has gun charges because when they raided the house, they found a arsenal of guns. They found a 50 caliber, a couple 223s, guns. The guy likes guns. And unfortunately, he had some dirty laundry that he probably shouldn't have been, talking about on camera. But the issue is his girlfriend, Jody Mann, is in for aiding and abetting a felon. Now, the crazy thing is here, they just shipped her off 2 days ago to a mental institution. Why? Because she said that Sutherland Springs was a hoax. That was in quotes on the court paperwork. It said because she thinks Sutherland Springs is a hoax. So people really should understand that you can't say stuff like that because you're crazy. And right out of the gate, all of a sudden now we have people going to the funny farm because they think it. Now Robertson, he tried to get bail, and they said he's a threat to the people of Sutherland Springs. They will not let him out. And he has a maximum of a 10-year sentence. And if he fights us, and I've been the main guy, I've been the point guy on all of this, which is the craziest absolute thing. Robert's mom is 76 years old. She can't do any of this stuff. And so I've been calling attorneys from down here. I've been, people are like, well, he never had the money. I'm like, I've already seen him burn 27 grand to this point, and he's about to drop another 70 grand on this other big wig attorney. And he wants to fight it with everything that he has. And so, he had $100,000. By the time he gets done, he might have 50 cents to give to the people with a death certificate. But, they've essentially silenced this guy, and they did it on a technicality. And the thing that we have to understand is that if we have dirty laundry, we're packing things, or we have baggage, they are going to attack absolutely everything that we hold personal. And, you have things like Project Kansas, they know what you do. They know what you search for. This isn't secret. If the government needs something, okay, I need some dirt. Let's just go to Project Kansas. I mean, I bet you've searched some scandalous stuff that might, put you away at some point. That's just the way it is. Over your lifetime, it just accumulates and you forget about it. But Project Kansas doesn't, and it will always know where you've been.
Yeah, the problem, just so the audience is aware is that Robert had a felony conviction going back, I guess, when he was 20 years old, which was 34 years ago. It was car burglary or something like that. I'd read. And so Texas law, and I think we have the same law here in North Carolina and probably across the country. If you're a convicted felon, you can't have a firearm.
Absolutely.
And then, I hate to say this, but filming it.
Oh yeah.
Having the weapon there, sticking it under the mat in your car, and that just that's going to be extremely problematic, and it became very problematic because that's how they found it, right? They did a search warrant
absolutely. Yep.
On the camera. They took a look. They saw that there was a weapon. And from what I understand, the conversation was, hey, if they find the gun, he was telling his girlfriend, just tell them it's yours.
Yep.
That was on the video.
Yeah, Yeah, it's like you got to read The Art of War if you're ready to go to war or something like this. I mean, you got to read The Art of War and understand. You just don't do stuff like that. And it's like you look back on this, and I guess nobody was going to be able to. I guess you just can't quite understand. You never quite expect what is coming at you. And looking back, I'm sure he would do everything differently. And there was a bunch of us that advised him not to do this Vice interview. I told him, I'm like, man, this looks sketchy because we heard a pre-phone call to this whole thing. And I'm like, man, I don't know, man. It just sounds bad. And there's some big names out there that said, don't do it. He's like, I got this. And I'm like, okay. So, now we're fighting for the guy's freedom. And, if he takes this all the way, if he doesn't do a plea deal and walk away at 2 years, he's going to be in at 10 years. Absolutely.
10 years, because that's what it is for having the firearm as a convicted felon.
Yep. Yeah. And they'll throw the book at him. And what's funny is I've been talking to all these attorneys, and these guys know one of the attorneys, the guy's name is Orlando Garcia, and he's a bigwig attorney or a bigwig judge. And this guy goes, I don't know why this guy keeps taking Robert's case, and he keeps judging on it. He's like, there's all these other judges that could do this, but this guy keeps taking this case. And I'm like, man, dude is done. And the prosecutor is ex-CIA. We found like some links to her, back in CIA stuff. So we don't know if she's active or not. And, when he got up on stage the other day, or not stage, in court, they had a Texas Ranger that was crying crocodile tears about the guys in Sutherland Springs. And so, I mean, it was over. He's like, the whole entire court, they have a Texas Ranger crying, and he's like, there was not a tear. He's like, it's just like everything we've been chasing, but they have this guy, and, we tried background check this guy, and the guy doesn't exist as far as we know. So we don't know what the heck's going on, if they just marched him into a fake courtroom and throwing the book at him, or, we're to that line right now of, do you fight this and try to take it to trial, or do you back away and save it for another day? And, I don't know.
Yeah, the issue, Jason, is that the controllers control everything, which means they control the legal system.
You bet.
So if you think for 1 second that you're going to get justice in the legal system, especially when it's something like this stuff that's going on with these events, this is like deep state stuff. I mean, just to use an overused term, it's deep state stuff. So to think that the players that are involved in this, the planners and so on, don't have all the angles covered. If you think for 1 second that they don't think that there's going to be people that are going to show up, protest, and try to expose this, like they understand how this works. They understand how people work. They understand the human psychology of all this stuff.
Absolutely.
So that's the problem. You are not going to get remedy in a system that it's there to keep you in a box.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's meant to silence you, and it definitely silenced him. I mean, it silences anybody who goes in. I mean, anybody that has never done time, you learn after a few days in there, a few months after there, time becomes different. Your thinking starts to change. And the thing is, if you're not making a dent, you're not making a wave, and you're there as a martyr and nobody knows you're a martyr, what good is it? What good is it? And, people can say that this Sutherland Springs thing is with Robert and Jody is part of the PSYOP. They say 153 News is the PSYOP. I mean, there's literally insane people out there that think we're all part of the PSYOP. And I'm like, this is such a good PSYOP. They have the 76-year-old lady that calls me every day. And, I cry with her. I mean, she is the most adorable woman in the world. And you wouldn't have no idea she's Sidethorn's mom. She is so nice. And his mom is just a doll. And it's a sad situation that we're in America, and I wish it wasn't so. I really wish it wasn't so.
And the other thing, that I want to say this, Jason, is that, people have short memories. So you might be a presence today, but if you're gone tomorrow, people move on. People move on.
Do.
They find their entertainment someplace else. And that's the other thing,
Yep.
a lot of people, when they watch shows and stuff like that, they watch YouTube channels, they call themselves, they're in the truth community. I'm not talking about Robert, by the way. I'm talking about the audience, the listeners, right?
Yeah, sure. Right, right.
For them, it's entertainment. I call it conspiratainment. And as soon as, that channel's
You
not
bet.
there anymore or something happens to the person who's putting the content up, well, it's like they go over to the television set, change the channel, and they go someplace else to get their entertainment. So that's something for those of us that are in the truth community and the alternative research community, this is something that we have to keep in mind, because you can be replaced like that in the minds of people that are supposedly your supporters or your subscribers.
Oh, yeah.
You got to think in those terms. Now, am I saying that you don't, you're not supposed to do anything? You're not supposed to be an activist? No, I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is you've got to go about it in a way that you have to protect yourself. You have to protect yourself.
Absolutely.
You have to.
Yeah. Truth is a very unpopular subject right now. We just don't, there's a fine line of what is truth. We woke up into 1984, and it's like, I guess it started around Las Vegas when they purged. I mean, they started a massive purge that hasn't stopped. And, it's like, you and I are perfect examples. We're scared to talk about some things, right? We don't want to talk, we can't mention the 6 million things here and there, because look at what it's done. It works. It definitely works. And so if you want to be on YouTube, you got to play by YouTube rules. You just don't touch things that, are sensitive. And it's real crazy too, because now, I used to get ixnayed all the time on YouTube strikes. I have like 10 different channels right now because I keep getting strikes and I just can't keep them up. So, there's some things you talk about and some things you just can't say. And I don't understand which, hoax it is that you don't say. But for the most part, it's crazy. And I don't know who controls that stuff. But, we're in an age of control. I mean, you and I, we're controlled.
Yeah. And
to a degree.
The thing is, you do have to maneuver around to keep your platform, because if you have no presence, you have no voice, plain and simple.
Absolutely.
It really gets down to that, I was at a point where I was one strike away from my third strike on YouTube for community guideline strikes, and it had to do with these events, okay? And I was ready to go down with the ship because I was just going to, move on to another platform. And if it happens, it happens. But I'm still going to have a presence on other platforms. It's just not going to be as prevalent as YouTube. And that's the thing.
Sure.
YouTube, by far, is still the kingpins.
Yeah, absolutely. YouTube will always be the kingpin. Yeah, I mean, they made their purchase as well. I mean, it was like $1.6 billion back in 2005 when they bought YouTube. And so that's where the traffic is. And that's what I tell everybody on 153news.net is, I mean, you need to use this as your segue into YouTube. You can't put stuff on YouTube. You can put trailers like you're talking about. You can put, this is what you'll find right here, but you can't say certain things. So you can still exist. And I think it's the smart people that have actually gone and, we try to find different ways around it. And, you learn what to say, what not to say. Pretty soon the strikes come off. And I mean, my channel now finally has no strikes. So I'm like, oh, I'm a good boy now. I'm like, I'm feeling really good, but, it's where do we go from here? But you got to use YouTube because the people will always be at YouTube. It's not going to be a BitChute. It's not going to be at 153news.net. I mean, we're the niche people. We're the place where if you really want to get some raw data, if you want to see what's really going on, go to 153 News. But it's niche. It's niche. Not everybody wants to see that stuff. Most people would rather go see, whatever PewDiePie or whatever his name is on YouTube. It's like they just don't care.
Yeah. No, you're right. And Jason and I, we conversed through email before this show, and one of the things I said to Jason was that in all likelihood we're not going to be able to put this show up on YouTube because of what we're talking about. So we'll have a trailer and then we're going to point it to other platforms so that folks can listen to it. And that's the game we have to play in order to keep the ship afloat.
Absolutely, yeah. Or either that or go down with the ship. And like you said, we're short memory. I mean, nobody's going to remember it. I mean, if you're not active. And this is the time to be active. This is the time that we really need to be waking people up. I mean, we're in the middle of the end of a war, right? It's just you see it from all directions. Everybody's locking us down. There's got to be a reason for that. They did the purge for a reason. Things are where they're at for a reason. I mean, it can't go on too much longer. So, everybody should be waking people up, take the information, go as gentle as you can and free as many people as we can while we still have any time left. Because I mean, at any point they could ixnay what we have left on YouTube. They could ixnay, they can silence the rest of us when they want.
Right. That's right. So Jason, when was the last time, going back to Robert for 1 second, that you had a conversation or a correspondence with him, and how's he doing?
So he called me 4 days ago, and he's doing real good. I'll give you something. So this is something nobody else has because I locked it down on 153 News because the trolls are crazy. So Jody Mann, on one of her conversations with me, she's like, Sidethorn, will you marry me? And so I told Sidethorn, I was like, hey, man, this is really dramatic, but, your old lady wants to marry you in prison. Are you game? He's like, I'm totally game for it. So he was good. He was totally good. He wanted his old lady out. He wanted Jody out, but she can't. She's stuck. She's going to a mental institution for 30 days for evaluation. And I don't know what's going to happen at that point, but he's doing okay, man. He's not real happy with his attorneys. He's 27 grand into these things, and they just don't really, they're not working out for him. And my first mission was, I'm like, you know what, I'm going to go find an attorney who's not a Freemason. And then, like 100 calls into this, I'm like, I don't think I'm gonna find one that's not a Freemason. So I start calling the women. I'm like, are you in like the Ladies Elks or something? I mean, where are you at? What do you support? Is your husband in the Freemasons? So we've been looking at women and versus men, and it's like, anybody who knows anybody and they know these judges and stuff like that. I mean, it's like they've already gone to the banquet ball. They've already danced with the goat. It's over. So
well, look, the bar is a secret society itself. Okay?
Absolutely. Yeah, maritime law. I mean, it's the weirdest thing. We're stuck in a world of water.
Yeah. I mean, so the thing is, you're not going to find an attorney who's not in a secret society because the bar itself is a secret society. Now, whether they're a Freemason or not, I'm going to say most of them probably are. But if you find one or two, three, maybe that are not, they're in the bar. So, and their allegiance is to the bar. They take an oath.
Absolutely.
And that's what folks have to understand. For anybody who wants to join or subscribe to 153news.net, or if you're a content provider and you want to be able to put content up on your platform, how do they go about doing that?
You can send me an email. Like I said, we're real personalized. Send me an email. If you're a content provider, send me some examples of the content you provide. And again, it's not for everybody. This is for people that really speak the truth. I mean, we're not looking for stuff that can exist on YouTube. They have tons of hard drive space, and it's infinite storage. Here, we're just looking for the stuff that will let our kids hang some traitors. That's it. A chance for us to expose what's out there. And if it ever comes to where we can use this as the evidence box, come and see us. But yeah, drop me an email. Everybody can drop me an email, jboss008@gmail.com, and I'll set you up with an account, and come join the family.
And you still have your YouTube channel, you said?
It's sporadic here or there. It's In Time Headline News, and you can search for jbossman008 and I come up. So, and I don't get too crazy out there, but it is what it is.
All right. Well, I'm really glad we hooked up, Jason, and a great conversation. And come back anytime. We'll talk about whatever it is that
All right, man.
that we want to talk about. Doesn't have to be Google. It could be whatever. Right? We could talk about whatever's going on in the world, or any of the craziness that happens on any particular day.
Yeah. Great. Sounds good. Well, thank you so much. I truly appreciate it. Love your stuff. A lot of people on 153 News, they think you're the best. They're so excited I was going on this. So they think you're one of the best interviewers out there. So it'll be cool to hear the show.
Oh, well, thank you, guys and gals. It's nice to hear. All right, Jason, thank you so much. And that concludes another Sage of Quay interview, and I hope you enjoyed the discussion as much as I did. Links to my guests' websites and social media are listed in the show notes below. And as always, I'd like to thank everyone for listening and visiting the blog. You can get to the blog by typing in sageofquayradio.blogspot.com, or simply head over to our hub website at sageofquay.com. Also, if you get a moment, please visit laboroflovemusic.com to listen to my album, Leaving Dystopia. And remember, live in truth and always serve creation. It's really that simple. See everyone next week. Be safe, enjoy, and God bless.
Just a cog because you're on. Yeah, you're on. You work a job just to survive. You have a pulse But you're not alive because you're owned. Yeah, you're owned. Welcome to the machine. Welcome to the machine. You have the kids, a wife who's cold. You fall in line, do what you're told because you're owned. Yeah, you're owned. You watch your TV, turn off your mind. Your eyes are open, but still so blind because you're owned. Yeah, you're owned. You go to church, listen to the word, pray to a savior,